Hey, what's up guys, Benzo Figures here, and today I'll be talking about my top 10 figures of 2023. I bought a lot of figures this year, but a lot of it was older figures from Ross and Ollie's for custom parts. So narrowing down my top 10 figures this year was pretty tough for me. I've asked people on Instagram what your favorite figures were, and many of you guys had so many different answers, which made me realize that my top figures doesn't have to be the most talked about or the most popular figure, and that my own list will definitely be different than most people's. I know that's an obvious conclusion, but I'm slow at these things. So that being said, heads up, there's going to be some bad takes. I know they're bad takes, but who cares? It's a fun video with toys at the end of the day. With that out of the way, let's look at my top 10 picks of 2023. So at number 10, it's Beyond Earth's Mightiest, Black Widow from Marvel Legends. Sorry Blade, you almost made this list, but Black Widow takes the number 10 spot barely. Not gonna lie, when I first got this figure, I wasn't too impressed, and part of the reason being is that I think this figure was overhyped. A lot of people were talking about how incredible this figure was, and its articulation is the best ever, and by the time I got it, I thought it was alright. But after letting the years sink in and stuff, this figure does have a lot going for it. A little overhyped, yes. But that doesn't take away the fact that this figure is better than most female Marvel Legends that has come out. It comes with a bunch of accessories and effects, and 3 different head variants to keep it new and exciting. It's pretty wild that a simple ab crunch really does give a figure a lot of range. And I'm hoping that with the release of this figure, Hasbro will continue to make more female characters with this much range in the future. And I look forward to that. At number 9, we have the Berserker Armored Guts figure by SH Figuarts. Okay, so this is a bad take, and this might be the controversial take I was talking about, and it might be a little confusing considering that I roasted it on my review, but I still like this figure a lot, and I like it way more than my Figma Berserk figure. I love the look and aesthetic of this figure, and has a bunch of interchangeable accessories. But I do gotta admit that this figure is up here mostly because of my love for this character, and it's still probably the best Guts figure we have so far. Which isn't saying much, but yeah, I'm coping pretty hard. Number 8, Kazuya Mishima by Game Dimensions. So when they first announced this figure, I definitely had my doubts about it. The promo shots didn't look too good, and the previous Dragon Ball Star figures aren't great, and had many issues about them as well. Plus, I thought the price point was really steep, all things considering, so I wasn't too excited about it. So when I got this figure as a gift from my friend, I was pleasantly surprised that this figure is actually really good. The articulation is awesome and has a bunch of range, and the sculpt looks way better in person than advertised. It still had the issue of the figure not having paint on it to bring out the detail sculpted on it, so I painted it myself. I think in 2024 I'll finish this sloppy paint work up, but this figure definitely would be higher if I didn't have to paint it myself. But I'm excited to see more figures from this line, and this was definitely a solid first attempt. At number 7, the Dark Knight Joker by McFarlane. I know McFarlane gets a lot of hate for his inconsistent quality control and lack of articulation, but one thing he does excel at are sculpts and price points, and this figure has an incredible sculpt for its price point. This figure is a shining example of that. The pile of money is a pretty cool stand, and I know DC is being weird with their figures not having guns, but this figure definitely would have benefited with some. Overall, a solid figure that no one really talks about. Next up at number 6, almost made it to the top 5, is Abra ONeal by NECA. I know this figure has been on the toy news lately since NECA decided to re-release this figure on their site, but for $5 more than the original release. That does suck, but they definitely underpriced it the first time around, considering it comes with so many accessories that it's kinda accessory overload. In my opinion, this is the best Abra ONeal figure that has yet to come out. It tops the older NECA release and looks better than the Super 7 one that came out. Other than the neck being a little long, the overall sculpt of the figure is incredibly done well, plus it comes with this bird box head sculpt, right? Now, narrowing it down to the final 5 figures of 2023, Marvel Legends Spiral figure. Now, you may not know this, but I'm a pretty huge Marvel vs. Capcom fan, and I still don't know anything about this character other than that she was in that game. So for a niche character to get so much love in creating this figure, this was definitely a surprise. I want to say that this figure has entirely new parts other than the weapons that she carries. All 6 of her arms are completely brand new and have updated arms. Yeah, this figure has definitely been slept on, probably because she's not super well known and she's pretty obscure. But that doesn't take away the fact that this is definitely the best Marvel Legends of 2023. To be honest, my number 4 and my number 3 pick can be interchangeable as they're both really solid figures. But coming in at number 4, SpiderGwen by SHFiguarts. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this figure is way up here for the sole reason that this is the best looking Gwen figure with the hood up and the mask off. The hood, maskless look is my favorite look for Gwen, and SHFiguarts really knocked it out of the park with this one. Nothing against that Rebel Tech one that came out years ago. That figure still has the best articulation, but that maskless face sculpt was just way too small for the figure. Biases aside, this is still a solid release by SHFiguarts and a great figure. Now starting off at top 3 is Nightwing by Mafex. This is my first Mafex figure, so I didn't really know what to expect, and obviously for it to be number 3, it did not disappoint. Now I know some people complained about him looking too beefy, but personally I don't mind it. In the comics, Nightwing substitutes in as Batman, so for this figure to be sculpted in a more beefy tone makes a little bit more sense to me. Anywho, this figure captures the Jim Lee look to it perfectly, and aesthetics wise, I really dig it. But do I think this is the best Nightwing figure of all time? That might be a video for another time, but this is definitely my number 3 pick for 2023. So for my number 2 pick, a couple things to mention. This could easily be my number 1 pick as well, to be honest. It's just that good. And it would be a disservice to just include one, but if I were to include all of them, it would literally take up half of my list. So at number 2, it's a Jada Toys Street Fighter line. For toy companies who specialize in toy cars, Jada Toys came out swinging with these Street Fighter figures. These figures are so good, and they all come with particle effects, alternate hands, heads, awesome packaging, more articulation than their import counterparts, and all for the price of a Marvel Legend. Like I said earlier, this could easily have been my number 1 pick. But for my number 1 pick, it has to go to Lady Maria by Figma. This figure might not have the best articulation, and this figure is really expensive, and it may not be the best figure on this list. And that's okay, because it's still my favorite figure of 2023. Bloodborne's my favorite game of all time, so this number 1 pick was obviously biased and turning a blind eye to its many faults. That being said, Lady Maria is one of the coolest bosses in the Soul series, so for this figure to come out with all the alternate accessories, combined with the look and aesthetic of the figure, to me this figure is perfect, and is my number 1 pick for 2023. So guys, that will wrap up 2023 for me, and if you made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments what was your favorite figure of 2023.